What's going on? YouTube Metal Complex here, and welcome to episode 10 of the quest for the perfect budget knife. If you're new to this series, let me go over the episode list with you. I encourage you, if this is the first one you're watching, I encourage you to go back and watch each individual episode so you kind of understand where how I came to the conclusion that I came to for each episode. Episode 1, overall size and blade length, you can see there, that's what I concluded. Episode 2 was handle materials, you can see there, G10 steel liner, etc. Deployment, we went with thumb stud. I want some external stops, much like how we've got here on the Mini Doman. Lock type, I think liner lock is where I'd want to go with it. Ergonomics, contoured scales, simple shape, etc. Blade shape and grind. Drop point, maybe a small flat similar to the Shaman or Ritter Hogue, which I don't have out here today. Well, actually, no, I do have the Ritter Hogue. There you go. That's kind of what we're looking for there. Camera's not focusing. Blade steel, 1 of 3 would be okay. 154 cm and N690 or D2, considering the price range we're hypothetically working with. We talked about X Factor, aesthetics, and customization. I understand that aesthetics is subject to everybody's individual opinion, but I have a need for simplicity in the design so that aftermarket part creators can help support this hypothetical budget knife with lots and lots and lots of customizable different parts. I kind of like the Lego thing, kind of like what the Benchmade Griptilian has going on for it. Hinder's XM18, the whole modularity thing. And parts and modularity in and of itself is something we talked about, making sure that pocket clips fit both the large and small models, things like that. We also talked about in episode 9 the little details. That's really important. A lot of little tiny things that some makers get wrong that just ruin the whole model. Go back and watch those. It's very important to kind of understand how I came to that. A lot of people disagree with me on certain things, and that's fine, but just to kind of I'm very detailed in my explanation for wanting certain things. And what's the point of all this? Well, the knife world has come a long ways since this guy, the Ontario Rat 1 and 2, thank you Alex for letting me borrow that. The knife world has come a long ways since these guys came out, but oddly enough, they've reigned supreme for a long time. Now we have some incredible budget knives that are made available to us. But me personally, I feel like, God, we're so close. Like and it's my wants. I'm projecting like my own personal things. But I've talked about all the little things that are really good about certain knives and really good about other knives. And I'm like, if you just combine this stuff and you get every last little detail right, we could hypothetically create this perfect budget knife. So the goal of this series is not to bend everybody to think exactly the same as me. It's really just to give you guys an idea of my thought process and how I apply it to what I might consider to be perfect. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, is this the last episode? This is episode 10, by the way, where we're going to talk about price. That's what everybody's been wanting me to get at, right? No, I will have an episode 11, a conclusion, which I have no idea how I'm going to do that, because I'll tell you right now, it just doesn't quite exist yet, but I will try to find a way to conclude this episode. So we're not quite on the last episode yet. Today we're going to talk about price and how I have arrived to the price in my head that I think is going to be justifiable on this knife. There's a lot to talk about. Definitely, I've got a lot of great examples of budget knives that are reasonable prices and have a lot of the attributes that I'm looking for. So we'll go over that. Want to let you guys know, I know, like I say, every single time, I know you guys watch my channel because you're like me and you've got the itch. You're looking for the next thing. It doesn't matter if it's an expensive knife or a budget knife. You guys have the itch. So if you're on your tablet, your computer, or your phone, and you have access to the description, you can pull that down, and I've got Amazon affiliate links for everything you could possibly want in that category, at least what I think you guys might be looking for. There's Benchmade Spyderco ZT specific knives. I've got a list down there that says amazing budget knives you guys can look at, and I've also got whole categories. So if you want to browse like Spyderco, you want to browse ZT, you want to browse WE knives, you want to browse cold steel knives, it's down there. I had somebody tell me the other day, they're like, you talk about it all the time. I'm afraid to open that description up because I'm afraid I'm going to find something. That cracked me up. Yeah, you probably will. I'm going to tell you right now, if my description definitely has some attractive stuff down there. So take a look. Anyways, let's go ahead and proceed here. I've got a lot of examples of knives that are all knives that I would consider in the budget range. Now, everybody has asked me multiple times during this series, what is it that, how are you defining budget? And I kept saying the same thing. I said, well, for the sake of making sure that all of my points, you know, like everything that I'm going to look for in this knife, and being able to talk about everything that could be included in as large a range as possible while still just barely hanging on to the term budget, we're going to say anything under $100. And that always, every time I said that, people are like, $100? That's not a budget knife. I know. We're going to conclude that here today. I'm going to tell you guys right now, the most expensive knife that I have up here, there's no room for the poor Tough Light. Most expensive knife I've got up here is probably the Tucson TS49. And you know, you can get that thing well under $100. I don't know exactly what it is. It's down there in the description, by the way. But everything up here is well under $100. I've got stuff that is that's manufactured in China, Taiwan, and USA here. Now, a lot of people I think would say, you know, it's obvious. Like, this knife's going to have to be manufactured in China to achieve the price you're wanting. I don't necessarily think that's true. Enter the Kershaw Bare Knuckle and the Kershaw Blur, which are both SpeedSafe USA, our Kai USA products. Both of them have excellent warranties, and it's easy to get the parts. And so that's I mean, right off the bat here, I say right off the bat, 6 minutes and 30 seconds into the episode, right off the bat, that's the most attractive option, right? To have a budget knife made by Kershaw USA, right? Because they've got some pretty good steels. They use a lot of 14C27 or 12C28. I can never remember exactly what they're using. Those are all right. They don't use a lot of D2, 154 CM. They use CPM 154 on some of their automatic USA knives. Those are a little bit more high end, around the $100 mark. But they're certainly capable, I would think, of doing that. But they don't use a lot of those materials. So I'll tell you right now, ideally, I would have, since we're going to talk about price, we have to talk about who would make it. Ideally, I would want, I live in the United States. I root for the home team. I root for home manufacturing. I would love, ideally, first and foremost, for this knife to be made in the United States. Now, while that's a great wish, I don't know that it's 100% realistic. Kershaw likes to use a lot of aluminum. They do not, they don't have a lot of, and they do, I mean, they have some. They don't use a lot of G10. I mean, they're fully capable of producing this, right? Now, if it's manufactured by a Chinese company, let's say Tucson, or Bestech. Bestech would be great. I mean, they have excellent fit and finish. Arguably, let me say this. Knives that come from Tucson, Civivi, or Bestech have fit and finish that is indicative of a knife that is much more expensive. So the benefit there is it could probably be created for the same price, but you could have some serious polishing done on the fit and finish level. And guys, keep in mind, I don't make knives. I don't design knives. I have never worked with the equipment that's associated with, you know, manufacturing knives. So I don't understand things at you know, the brass tacks level, the costs associated with this stuff. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because I'm not a professional. I'm just a guy with a camera and some knives, and I'm making wishes, right? and I don't mind talking a lot. But you know, between all this stuff, it's like, you know, the Civivi's got the choil, right? The Civivi comes in, you know, somewhere around the $50 mark, I think. The Kaiser Domen has the external stop pins and the steel that I like. It's got the shadow box scales and the G10. It's got a lot of the elements I like. It's something around the $40 mark. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on these prices. I'm just making guesses. Gonzo, I mean, just like the build quality, the flipping action, even though we're not looking for a flipper, you know, these Gonzo knives come in, you know, in the mid-20s. The TS49, probably one of the most incredible budget knives I've ever seen, with titanium and D2, that amazing blade, this micro milling on the titanium. I know we're not looking for a titanium frame lock, but you know, like the garage, it does have the external stop pins that are actually garage. I don't know if you can actually call that an external stop pin because it's technically internal, but amazing for being well under $100. The Bestech Paladin, which we actually have not reviewed yet, having the contouring that I like, and again, just elements of fit and finish that are just amazing. It's got a pretty good pocket clip, not perfect, but it does have it set into the scales, which is what I would prefer on a knife like this. The Kershaw bare knuckle being a USA made knife that has incredible flipping action. It's manual, you know, again, elements that are proving my point that a budget knife can be made in the United States by most people's, some people's definition of budget is 20 bucks. Right? If that's your definition, you know, I'm sorry. I would love to rub a magic lamp and make this happen, but we got to be we got to at least be remotely realistic with this, right? So the bare knuckle coming in quite a bit more expensive, but still amazing considering the fit and finish, the flipping action, the fact that it's made in the United States. Same thing again with the Kershaw Blur. Now it's assisted, but man, is it just set up right? I mean, it's the right size. It's got all the different blade shapes. It's got the whole like choice thing that I was talking about. Now Kershaw does a great job with the Blur. This model comes in like a million different flavors, and that's great. That's part of the reason why that's so important to me. I had somebody say, you know, when I did the episode about modularity and customization, they're like, "That's great, you know, but if you add $100 worth of custom parts to a budget knife that originally cost something around $50, then you're defeating the purpose." I agree with that. I agree, but I want that choice to be there for people. Like, for me, like I have no problem defining irony with a purchase like that. But I like the idea of having the option down the road, you know, to initially purchase a knife, love it, and then maybe after I'm bored with it, or I just want to dress it up, or I want to do something, I want to make it shine again. It would be nice to know that there are different options out there. Now, ideally, this hypothetical company selling this knife, ideally they would get to a point where they would just be able to manufacture the extra parts, you know, right out of their factory. Kind of like what Rick Hinderer does. Rick Hinderer offers every single part on the knife can be swapped out for something else, and people go freaking crazy for that. Don't believe me? Go to my Hinderer playlist and look at all the stuff that I can't stop buying from I just can't. It's not, I mean, it's not healthy, but like, you know, it's fun. It's fun to do that. Right, so that would be good for this, you know, for those people who don't want to do it, they want to keep it a budget knife, great, they don't have to. So I want that choice there. Cold Steel Tough Light, a great example of a knife that is inexpensive and also incredibly durable. Now, a lot of that has to do with the triad lock, and that's great. It's not going to be the most ideal lock for this knife. You know, we're looking for a liner lock. I understand, you know, it might be difficult to, right off the bat, manufacture 10% to 15% left-handed liner lock versions of this knife, and then, you know, the other 80, 85, 90% be right-handed ones, because most of us are right-handed people. You know, I think in the beginning it would just have to be a simple right-handed liner lock. But that's all kind of besides the point. You know, I'm trying to think of like every last little thing that could keep the cost of this thing down. That's why we chose G10 steel liners. That's why we decided why I decided I would not want countersunk steel liners, because it would add to cost. Not a whole lot, but it would. It's extra processes, right? A flat G10 scale sitting on a flat liner that's just had some milling done to it, you know, is probably the right way to go. Literally exactly like this. You see the contouring here? This is very similar to the Shaman. When I talk about what I want in a budget knife's handle, the Civivi Praxis here is just perfect. It's essentially exactly what they did with the Shaman. It gives the illusion of contouring, right? It's not full contouring. That's really that can be really expensive to do. It's not like on the Ritter Hogue here, but this is perfectly acceptable, right? So they have all these edges knocked down. They've got texturing, but not so much texturing that it's uncomfortable. It's very comfortable. It creates an incredible ergonomic experience, right? That coupled with the forward choil, the rise and the blend. I mean, there's a lot of elements here that are exactly what I'm talking about. I would want a little bit more of a flat, but we haven't reviewed the Praxis yet, you know, but man, I'll tell you what, different pocket clip, a little bit bigger screws, and then you get rid of the flipper tab and you do a garage or a thumb stud up here that has that's acting as an external stop, and we just ever so slightly alter the blade shape for a flat to run out a little bit longer, giving a little bit more durability to a blade that in this case is a little thin, right? but look at all that room to drop towards. I mean, we're really close to what I'm talking about here with the Praxis. You know, you guys imagining that with me? Are you starting to drool? If you think like me, you are. The Praxis is a great example of that. Now, the Praxis by itself comes in somewhere around the $50 mark. Sometimes as high as 60, sometimes as low as 40. I don't know. It's somewhere in there. That's not. But my point is that the alterations that I would make to the Praxis, changing even the steel would be the most expensive change, right? All the other changes could probably be done and not alter the price. The steel that I would want is probably more expensive than the 9CR13 MOV or whatever that is. 9CR, is it 9CR13, 9CR18? I can never remember. There's so many CR steels. I can never remember that. Not the point. Changing that steel to N690, 154 CM, or even D2, maybe not D2, but it might be more expensive. We're at 15 minutes here, and I want to kind of tell you guys where I think the price for this knife should be, hypothetically. I think realistically, to get everything that I want, right? And I'm not going to say that this could be a USA-made knife. I would love it if it was, but I think that every last element of this knife that I want to hypothetically create, you know, a combination of everything that you're seeing here, using, you know, the rat as the initial sort of design template, and we're sort of morphing it into this and combining it. You know, it would be a combination of these, essentially. It would be this, between these three, I've got just about everything that I am looking for here, right? Between the steel, the materials, the deployment, the stop pins, a good pocket clip. You know, I would take elements of these three combined. And I think given that, you know, and I suppose we'll throw this one in there because it's made in USA, right? So just for the manufacturer. Between those three things, I think a price point of somewhere around $65 is about where I'd want to be. And I know that that's a polarizing statement. I got a lot of you who are with me, and I got a lot of you who don't like that. Because most people watching this video, I can hear you saying it, budget knives are knives under $50. All right, but let me throw this at you. I used to be a car salesman. Does that surprise anybody that I used to sell cars? Let me throw this at you, right? If, you know, you could get a knife that had almost everything that you wanted for $50. Would you pay 15 bucks more if a genie could make it perfect for you, right? If it could be every single thing that you want, would you pay $15 more? I would, definitely, right? I mean, we use the same type of, I used to say the same type of stuff when I was looking at a vehicle, right? A lot of people sometimes will settle for something, but sometimes, you know, that's a totally different situation, me selling a car to somebody. But to me, you know, it was my thing that I always came from a point of, why are you settling for something? Get what you want. Yeah, the thing you're settling for is a little bit less money, but when it comes down to it, you know, now there's a huge difference. It's like, would I pay $200 for a great knife? Yeah, sure. Would I pay $600 for a knife that was perfect? I have before, but the sting of that increase of $400 that's a lot to take in, right? That's a whole different percentage. So don't think of it like that. Legitimately, what I'm saying is, you know, because I know people are going to use that example against me. Would you pay X amount more for exactly what we want? No, specifically, just between the $50 mark and the $65 mark. Would you pay $15 more to have it absolutely perfect? Yeah, I think I would. A great example of what difference that makes is the Civivi Statera. Have you seen that knife? All the little finishes on it. I mean, that thing is stonewashed, corners knocked down, precision. It's got that carbon fiber laminate on top of G10. So just like perfectly crafted. I mean, here's another example, the TS49, a little bit more expensive than a lot of the knives out here, but look at what it lands you, right? I mean, look at all this chamfering, these precision lines. I mean, this is what the knife world is capable of right now. $15 in the knife world goes a long way, especially in the budget. $15 in the budget knife world specifically goes a long way. Now, I think with all that in mind, I think that I do have to admit that while it would be great to have this knife made in the USA, the truth is it's probably going to put an additional $10 price tag on this exact knife, exactly what I'm talking about, with all the fit and finish and all the blah, blah, blah. It has everything that I want, the right steel. We add the USA made element to it, and we're looking at a $75 knife. And while I still personally, a lot of people are like, well, would you pay $25 more for everything that you want? A lot of people would, but every dollar you spend past the $65 mark, more and more and more people are kind of put off by it. And I'll admit that the same thing is true looking at the $50 price point. I mean, as soon as you bump the price to $51, there's a lot, whether it's logical or not, there's still a bunch of people who go, that's too much. We do that as human beings. We all have our mark, right? Nobody's going to agree on this. I mean, as I'm talking, at least one of you is typing me up a big, long message that I'm not going to read. That sounds so mean, but that's the truth. You can type me up that big, long message about how wrong I am. I'm going to read the first 3 lines and move on. This is just what I think, guys. Everybody is 100% entitled to their own opinion. If you don't, I mean, a lot of you are like, I've watched this whole series just for him to conclude that it has to be a $65 knife. Thumbs down, unsubscribe. I'm sorry if you feel that way, but, you know, I'm trying to approach this from as realistic a scenario as possible. I think to achieve a price, remember, the idea with this whole series is to appeal to as many people as possible. Not everybody. That's not possible. To have a knife that can do everything and appeal to everybody, you're dreaming, right? So that right there, it makes the, you know, the argument of like, I can't think a certain way. I should think a different way. It's moot point. It's just my opinion, my thought process of how, you know, how do I make this appealing to everybody, right? I feel like the majority of people would be okay, not 100% like, yeah, it makes me feel so good, but okay with $15 more than the $50 mark that most people seem to agree on, right? I feel like most people go, all right, you know, if it was absolutely perfect, exactly what you're talking about, or at least maybe what you're envisioning in your head is different from me, right? But if it gets you exactly, like if you could actually design it from the ground up and have it tested and proven to be perfect for you, would you pay $15 more for it? I feel like most people would, right? So $65 for D2 or N690 or 154 cm for a knife that is between 7.25 inches overall and 8.25 inches overall, so that you could have a blade length that is, you know, legal in most areas, or that would fit in most people's hands. At the same time, would have a forward choil, so people who had larger hands would still be able to enjoy the smaller models. That had a blade that was robust enough, you know, to be durable, but thin enough and tall enough to come down to a cutting edge that was going to be a good performer, right? Thick enough, around the 135 thousandths mark, maybe 140 thousandths max, to be able to handle some of those tasks where you might stick the tip in and use the knife in a way that it really wasn't designed for, because, hey, remember, it's a budget knife. It's not going to break the bank. That also has the nice contoured scales, right? Or at least this heavy chamfering. Material's been knocked down. Has a liner lock that's easy to engage, right? Has liners that come all the way out to the lip. So you have that durability in the handle, but also you've got the milling lines on the inside to knock the weight down. Maybe the bigger guy is coming in somewhere around 4.5 ounces or so. Maybe the smaller guy's coming in maybe a little more than that, maybe 4.75. Maybe the smaller guy's coming in somewhere around 3.75. I don't know. Ideally, that would be great. And then you've got, of course, you've got a good T8 pivot, 2 T8 body screws. They're domed off. It's easy to disassemble, right? The D-shaped barrel on the inside, so it's not free spinning, or maybe even just a captive pivot on the other side, something like this to keep it from free spinning. Your lanyard hole's in the right place. Your pocket clip looks something more like this, or like the Rat, you know, something like that that's been set in a way that it's not going to move around. Or maybe a really good, what's a good example of a good deep carry clip? This is a pretty good deep carry clip. You know, it would really need to be more something like how the Spyderco does. This is a great example of a deep carry clip. But anyways, it's mounted in a way that it's not going to come loose. It's also out of the way of the lanyard hole. It's unobtrusive, doesn't create a hot spot. Blah, blah, blah. You guys, you know, I went over all of this stuff, right? To get all of that stuff, the $65 mark, I think it would probably have to be foreign made. But me personally, just so this goes on record, me saying this, I would pay $75 to have it made in the United States. I'd pay $75 to have all of that and have it made in the United States and have a good warranty where I know that parts can be shipped to me. That's how I want to conclude this. Is one of the biggest elements of a knife is what happens if something breaks on it and it's not my fault, right? So those of you who are already upset about me saying you might, hypothetically, you might have to pay $65 for it. Would you pay another $10 to make sure that you had part of a warranty, like, how Kershaw does? Oh, you snapped a clip? No problem. Here's another clip. Oh, you're missing a screw? No problem. Here's another screw, right? That's why I would want that. Now, people who live in another country are like, that's great, but it doesn't help us. So from your perspective, what I'm saying is you would want it manufactured in your home country with a warranty that will allow you to get the parts that you need quickly. And I know as we progress in this, it's more and more and more. You're just making wishes, man. You're just making wishes. Yeah, that's all I can do. That's all that's in my arsenal because this knife doesn't exist. That would be ideal. So, $65 or so if it's manufactured China, Taiwan, and a lot of people are going to say you should look at Gonzo. You should be able to get that for way less. It should be less than that, maybe, but I can't say definitively because I don't make this stuff, and I would imagine a lot of people who would argue with me don't make it either. There's inevitably going to be somebody down there who's like, I make this stuff, and here's my okay, that's fine, but to everybody else, you're still just a guy leaving a comment. There's no definitive, there's nothing definitive there. So approaching it, and I'm not trying to come down on anybody, I'm just saying approaching it from my position, somebody who has limited information is trying to make an educated guess on this based on what I understand, which is not a lot. I'm thinking around the $65 price point if we're looking at a foreign-made knife, around the $75 price point if we're looking at a USA-made knife, which would be ideal, and you can just barely call it a budget knife, right? I'd rather approach or even slightly pass over the line of what the majority of people would call budget and get everything that I want than backpedal and cut corners just to save a few bucks and have it be faulty or lacking something that I really, really want. Does that make sense? I don't know. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for the discussion on price. I hope that I'm kind of in the ballpark where you guys were thinking. It would have been real easy to say, yeah, $50. That's what it should be. That'd be a 2-minute video, and not a lot of thought would have gone into it. In any case, you could still make the argument, well, it really was just you rambling. I don't know exactly how much thought really went into it. Fair enough. But I feel comfortable with this conclusion. I feel, actually, I'm very proud of this series, and mostly because of the positive feedback that I have got from you guys. I'm amazed by that, actually, because doing something like this, doing a series like this, where I stand up and I say, here's what I want, right? This is what I want, what I think is great, and I want everybody to listen to me. That really is risky to do. I mean, it opens me up for so much, backlash and argument, especially considering I don't make knives. And to my shock, you guys, for the most part, are like, yeah, I see where you're going with that. I don't agree with this, or this, but that's because my ideal knife would be slightly different than yours. But I appreciate the way you approached it. I love that you guys are on board with this, that you've been entertained by it. That the series has gotten so many views. It's so flattering. And I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. And at the same time, we're able to understand, how I approached it. And also, the majority of you understood that I'm not saying it absolutely has to be this way for every person, but that, all of these little elements are something you would have to consider that ultimately make up this hypothetical knife, and it might be different for everybody. So I appreciate that. Thank you for the interaction. Thank you for the engagement. Let me know, as usual, let me know down in the comment section. Also, if you're still here at the, what are we at, like 30 minutes now? If you're still here at the 30-minute mark, if you did go and use, one of my Amazon affiliate links and purchase something, let me know what it was. I'm always interested to find. I love the feeling that somebody, came to my video and decided to, go down and purchase something that I recommended, because there are specifically recommended knives down there. A lot of the budget knives actually that you guys saw in this series are included in the description. So if you decided to purchase one of those based on my recommendation, or just the series in general, or just because you had the itch and it was convenient, let me know. I'd like to, that always gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling when somebody does that. So let me know what you bought. Anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for episode 10 price. Like I said, keep an eye out for episode 11 conclusion. Don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoyed all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.